one. So my name is Michael. I started to work at StudySmarter like 7 months ago. Before I worked at eGym and at Inveox, 2 other startups with B2C and B2B business and for hardware and for software. So first, StudySmarter. So our mission is that we're empowering everybody to achieve their educational goals. So it's not only students, not only pupils, but basically everybody. But obviously we have to start somewhere. So we start with students, then pupil, and then let's see what's coming up next. And we cover the entire learning process. So in contrast to other competitors who are only focusing on flashcards or only on explanations, we try to cover the whole learning process. That means that you can upload any text or lecture slides, that you can then structure your studies and set smart reminders. You can create flashcards and notes and quizzes. We have a spaced repetition trainer, which allows you to learn pretty effectively for your exam. And in the end, you also can keep your progress and see how much you already learned and how far you're away from your goal of acing your exam. So that is our 2 pictures. The first is 2021, the second is 2022. So when talking about growth, a couple of numbers to share. So there were 40 team members in 2021 and almost 500 at the Christmas presentation. So a lot of them are in content creation, but also in product and tech, we grew a lot. So when I started, there were 14 product team members. I was the first product manager, took over some responsibilities of 2 of the co-founders. And now, like today, we have 41 product team members. This includes user research, UX concept, UI design, product managers, QA, and engineers in front end and back end. So we tripled our team members here. A rough structure of how our team is built up. Obviously, this is not a linear process, so please bear with me. That's only for visualization purposes. So we have like UX researcher and customer support and product analysts on the one hand side. Then we have like UX conceptor and product design. So that might be a little bit different from what you're used. So we have more specializing in people in UX and more specializing in UI, but often this is overlapping. So that's not a sharp border, but many of our designers do both. Some are a little bit more specialized on the one or the other. Then we have a lot of engineers. We have some QAs. We have a product manager who kind of guides the whole team to work on the most meaningful things. And then we have the founding team and functional leads to support us. And well, as you already have seen, we were growing a lot and we are still growing. So we have a couple of positions which we are hiring. So product manager, UX conceptor, product designer, UX researcher, customer support, product analyst, all in engineering and also QA. So in case you're interested or you know somebody who might be interested, please feel free to contact me afterwards or check our career page. Discovering context. I'm not sure how settled the term discovery is. So I want to explain you what I understand about discovery, and that's the following. So we start with a company mission. So ours is empowering everybody to achieve their educational goals. And this trickles down to a product vision. So how should a product look like in 5 years or so? And also the company vision. And the product vision then informs like the product strategy. So what kind of business and user needs do we want to satisfy, or which problems do we want to use? From there on, we have a problem which we want to use. And then in discovery, we say, okay, how can we solve this problem, or how can we satisfy these needs? And then there's only missing implementation. So delivery only obviously is understatement. Most of the work, at least capacity wise, is done in delivery, where we build the product to satisfy the needs. So if you want, you could say like the handing over. I'm not a fan of this term, but it's like when the engineer says, yes, this is ready, I can work on this. So in a refinement, for example, or sometimes with small tickets only via a Slack message. So some challenges with fast growth. There are some. So the first is that we target new user segments. So we started in Germany with students, then we had Germany and pupils. Then we are targeting now like US, UK, Canada, Australia. We have pilots in Turkey, Spain, Portugal, France, So there are a lot of new user segments, and obviously, if you want to understand your user, because in the end you want to solve a problem from the user, yeah, you have to get to know these users, right? And so it's challenging to keep up with like all these new user segments we do have. That's one of the challenges. The other challenge is that onboarding of new team members. So when I started, I was the first product manager. There was one designer. Now we have 7 designers. I think 7 designers. Yeah, I think 7 designers, 3 product managers, and 2 full-time UX plus 2 working students in UX. So all of these people have to get to know all our user segments, or at least part of them, right, to solve their problems. So onboarding them, we try to fix this or solve this issue by having in the beginning a couple of onboarding sessions where they get an introduction to analytics, where they get an introduction to like what we already know about our users, and currently building up a little bit more fully fledged picture of our users, etc., for the next people coming. And then there are always changing processes. So in contrast to a stable environment where you have like more or less the same amount of people, you can establish processes which you design for the next couple of years. In our case, that's impossible. So when I started, we had one team. One of the first things I did was, together with the founders, to decide like how can we split this team into 3 teams. Now we are thinking about how we can split it to 4 teams. We are currently using some tools. There are introduced new tools, and all of this is always changing. And everybody who's coming in also has past experience, and obviously we also want to leverage this and learn from them. So it's not like we have this process and now we can live with this forever. But there's always a change and also a diverging. Like one team is doing estimations, another team's not doing estimations, and so on. One likes to present in slides, one likes to work rather on Miro. So all of these things are not like standardized as you would expect it in a bigger company or a mature company. So where are we currently? I want to show you a little bit like what kind of tools we use, not because tools are the most important things, but it shows a little bit like who's working with what, and what it helps. So one thing I want to really, I didn't know this tool before, so it's lookback.io, and it's recording interviews. And it's really awesome because we conduct quite some interviews and we record all of these interviews, and we have the chance then afterwards to look together. So we have a session every Wednesday where designers and product managers look at one interview together to build like common understanding, what are our users struggling with. So for example, today we watched a session where a user was guided through the whole product and tried to find out like how it is used. And this helps a lot in creating this common understanding. So I really think it's very, very valuable if you do a lot of interviews that one person is conducting the interview, in contrast to sometimes it's 2 or 3. But then we can share like the most interesting interviews later on. There's a transcript possible, and you can also use like chat functions, etc. You can also watch over the shoulder. So the interviewee doesn't see you. So in case, for example, you want to do a live session with more people, this person is not like, oh my God, there are 5 people staring at me, right? It's like a one-sided mirror. So then qualitative tracking, also a very interesting tool, logrocket.com, which we primarily use for onboarding currently and for search. So it basically recreates how the user interacts with the app without the user knowing. So it's really like observing a user in their natural habitat. And yes, it's compliant with privacy policy because you don't see the user's name or something like this, but you see, for example, a US user looking at a German content and is puzzled and going back and forth and trying to change the language, for example. So that is something you really would have a hard time to know or to observe otherwise, because you need to be there at this explicit moment a user who have a clear intent of trying to use your app or trying to search for something or whatever. Amplitude for product analytics, similar to Google Analytics. Surveys, easy feedback, product board. We just introduced Asana, a project management tool I don't recommend. Lo-fi concepts we do in Miro, and also a lot of our sessions, and Figma for hi-fi concepts. So the most interesting for me, at least, are Look Back and LogRocket. I at least didn't know them before, so check them out if you're interested. So contact to user. I mean, everybody of us obviously is super user-centric. One of the necessary requirements is that we have contact to our users to be user-centric, and I want to show you like how we try to be as close to our user as possible. So obviously we have just active users. We have users who use our app and they have given us our their email, and we reach out to them with an email, and we also have in-app surveys. Currently, I think for guidance, so we have some kind of guidance how to help users to learn more effectively. And I don't know, every 100th or so user gets such an in-app survey and then fills it out, and we can analyze the data. Then we have a user panel. We just created this in December, which are 40 to 50 very active users who committed for 12 months to be our sparringspartner. So you can say this is kind of like beta users. We have a Slack channel with them. We send them also surveys via email. And we get much richer feedback, obviously, than with just a user, because these people really use our product day to day. And for all these like core features, it's very valuable also to look at the power users, and they take a little bit more time sharing what's working, what's not working with them. Then we have the working students at StudySmarter, and now probably half of you will say, oh my God, that's internal testing, you don't get any value out of it. Well, kind of. These users, some of the working students came to us before they, worked before with StudySmarter, so studied with StudySmarter before they came to us. So they are convinced users, and yes, there's a bias, definitely. But especially for usability issues, I think it's absolutely valid, and it's super quick. So there are like, I don't know, 200, 300, I don't know, working students. No, that's wrong. These were like it's another channel. But there are a lot of working students who are still at the university. So and some of them work with StudySmarter, study with StudySmarter. And it's really like sending out a survey today and getting first results tomorrow in a survey where we can say, okay, that's like some indication. And I mean, the obvious idea to get out the bias a bit, at least, is to show them like different versions, then let them rank them or something like this, right? That they don't have a way of, oh my God, I'm giving bad negative feedback to my employer, but there's no right or wrong. There's like 3 options, and we ask like, what do you like most, and why do you like it most? So to avoid this bias that they have this dependency on the employer. And then we have students, so people who are not yet using our product, and those we recruit mostly over Instagram. So Instagram ads leading to a survey, and working pretty well. So we can ask all kind of questions like, I mean, I left university 2011, so that's 10 years ago or so. So how do students study today, right? And indeed, there's a difference between those who are 24 or so in their masters and those who are 19 or 20. We already see a difference here, how much they use digital products to study. So I think very valuable, not the same quality, obviously, as our user panel, for example, but still very valuable to get also like non-users to voice their opinion. So these are some numbers about user interactions. So interviews, we hired 2, one full-time and 1 part-time UX researcher. So interviews are going up. So currently we have 50 in January. Like the group watching, we do like now every week. We started in December. Surveys for the students at StudySmarter, we sent out 6 in the last 3 months. Some surveys to users in December. As you can see, like LogRocket recordings, 318. So these are like not every one of this is already watched. Unfortunately for Amplitude and LogRocket, I couldn't find, at least at first glance, the data, because I could only go like 1 month back. Yeah, and an ongoing in-app survey and an ongoing churn survey where we got like continuously what kind of issues are currently popping up, and we look at that like regularly, or from time to time, like not every week, but from time to time, to see if something is changing. And I want to share with you a real life example. So that is a feature we are just about to launch. So it's a little bit a peak preview. And that is our study timer. So a study timer is basically you set how long you want to study. And well, then it's counting down and you study. Pretty basic, pretty easy, right? I want to share you how we got here. And this is the rough timeline. I tried to find all the data in our tools to give you a rough timeline and talk a little bit about what are the steps about. And please feel free to ask more in-depth question about this. So there was an idea. So there was in a Asana board, there was like, in fact, in this at this specific point, indeed from a founder, study timer. I think there was no description. So or something like, we should have a study timer, something like that. And then we have then it was lying around there some time, and we got some qualitative feedback of user interviews where they said, yeah, they want to try, it helps them if they put their alarm on, how long they want to study. And then especially interesting, I think, was I looked over the shoulder of one of our marketing guys who was watching a stream from an influencer, like a live learning session. And I'm too old for this stuff, but apparently it's now a thing to watch a stream of somebody who's learning. And this person had a timer there, and it was like Pomodoro, 25 minutes, learning, 5 minutes break, then interacting with watchers, viewers. And yeah, so I thought, okay, cool. They are also using it. So we also could use it for marketing then. And well, probably some of you have tried out Pomodoro. I'm a pretty big fan for a couple of use cases at least. And so we said, okay, let's prioritize this. And then we had like a first concept ready at the 15th of November, so 10 days later. That was like basically like one design sprint, if you want, so like for 1 week. One designer looked at this, what we already have, what others are doing, etc. And so that the first concept was ready. Then we realized we need some technical infrastructure. That was mainly because we wanted to test with beta users. So, I mean, if you test a feature, you obviously want to reduce the cycle time between, hey, that would be awesome, to our users say, hey, that is awesome. And normally you would like to try to have mockups or wireframes and test this with users. I do think so. Correct me if you see another option. But in this case, we decided it's not really possible to see if that is valuable for the user unless they use it in their real life. So obviously we can test usability, right? You can test if it's clear, like the wording, the button, the information architecture, etc. But if it's really like valuable to really people use that, it's very difficult to say like, now we do a laboratory experiment and here you have a timer, now learn. Okay. So what we decided was that we give them 2 weeks. And they can work with this study timer, looked at the data and analytics, and also had a qualitative interview afterwards. So we set up this the beta user group or user panel. We also set up at this time, and this was one of the first tests we did with them. So at shortly before Christmas, they got the first mock-up. No, sorry, not mock-up. It's in the product. It's in the product, but it was only available for these 50 users plus all StudySmarter email addresses. And then we had like 2 weeks later, we had the results. And then we had some minor adaptations. The gap between the 3rd and the 18th is also because, well, vacations, etc. But we had the minor adaptations ready. And currently at 19th, so a couple of days ago, we launched an A/B test, 50-50 A/B test for all new joiners. So all new users get into two groups. One gets a study timer, one doesn't. And we look at some of the success metrics. Obviously, one is like how often do they open it, how often do they complete it, but also at the activity, does it help users to learn more effectively, longer? Do they come back more? Do they value that more than just, oh, it's fancy, I tried out, but do they come back and use it again and again? So that is the current IB test. We will probably look at the data at the end of the week and let's see if it's already good enough. And then we will officially release it with all this marketing tatam that we will accompany it. So yeah, I think that's like one example. So obviously feel free that we dig a little bit deeper into this. And otherwise, we can answer some questions and answers. But first, I would like to quickly show you, because this is the perfect use case. So you should still see my screen, right? Yeah, so that is basically like a study set as we have it. So normally that would be like for a pupil, it would be biology, or for a student, it would be, I don't know, marketing 101 or something like that. And what I just did, or before I uploaded here the PDF of the PowerPoint presentation. And so what you can see here is like all these slides I have, right? So it's nothing fancy so far. But what you can do here is, for example, if you say, okay, I would like to learn this. I mean, obviously you don't want to learn like all our slides by heart or something like this. But what you can do is, you mark this and then you see here, okay, that's the question. And then you say, okay, and that is a question. And then I want to say, okay, that is our answer. And we do like this and create a flashcard. So something like this. And this is how our users can interact with the document they have at hand, the lecture slide or something like this, and create flashcards to learn it. You can do the same thing, for example, for a summary. You say, okay, this slide is especially interesting, so I want to have this here, and then you have it here in the summary, for example. So that makes it just a little bit faster than if you normally do like copy paste into a Word document or something like this. And well, I did share I share in a second in the chat, like with you the link, so you can test it. For now, I want to show you like a couple of flashcards I created beforehand. And so there's a quiz you can do, and then you can say, hey, what did I get out of this talk? So for example, how does StudySmarter get feedback from users? So obviously, as everybody in working in user research, we know we don't need feedback. We know everything, right? So apparently we don't know anything, everything at least. So we do have some tools to get feedback from our users, but we don't know everything. Which domains works StudySmarter? So it's in EdTech. Which tools do StudySmarter use for understanding issues in the onboarding process? So I explicitly mentioned one, which was LogRocket, but there's another one. Obviously, we also use Amplitude, like analytics tool. And how does StudySmarter support learners? Well, obviously, this is a presentation from an employee of StudySmarter, so probably is everything, right? Because we have so many features and we support the learners in so many ways that it fits their personal learning approach. Recording user interviews, I mentioned this also for lookback.io. And what's the mission of StudySmarter? That's a little bit tricky one. If you look at that and make up your mind, like what's the right one, you will find that this is more tricky. So maybe it's empowering students to achieve their educational goals. Well, in fact, we focus on students and pupils currently, but the goal is to achieve, in fact, for everyone, educational goals. Fast challenges with fast growth, onboarding new team members, yes. Targeting new user segments, yes. No real ownership, no, sorry. You will have here real ownership, and rigid structures we also don't have. So changing processes is right. Questions we want to answer in discovery. How can we make progress faster? Also important, but not in discovery. So how do you satisfy these needs from business and users? And which positions are open? Well, there are a lot. So product manager, designer, researcher, analyst, conceptor. and I think several others. So everything. We have currently 14 people working on the product. I know it was 41 exactly, like 14 was before. Over 400 are the numbers of users, employees we have in total. And was our mission. That was the one I just did. So it was this one. So I got 82% right. You are probably better. Feel free to join. So I paste in the chat like my contact details and the link to it. Feel free to test the product, to check out the sets. And by the way, what I just did was on purpose to repeat stuff, because one of the ways of effective learning is indeed to repeat stuff. And in case you are interested in education, I think this is one book I really, really highly can recommend about education. So Make It Stick is a really awesome book. It summarizes scientific findings about what's working in learning and what doesn't. So feel free to check it out. And now I jump back to this presentation and hope that you got some insights, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.